Words can't describe how much it takes to unblock the courage to start to stand up and say, Dad, I think you got a drinking problem. God forbid you ever say that. But that's what it takes. You are now the grown up. You now have to speak up. And it takes a lot of guts and a lot of practice. What'll happen is they will brush you off. After a while, if you do this a few times, they'll start to think about it. And then when you stop answering them or talking to them, it gets worse until they get drunk again, and then they want to question you on it, and you really don't want to talk to them when they're drunk. So the whole thing is just one big difficult mess. And I feel bad for anybody that has to go through it. And they're not going to allow, because they don't think there's anything wrong, they're not going to allow you to go get some help outside of the household, see a psychiatrist or some sort of therapist or child psychologist or anything along that line. What will happen eventually is what happened with me is I left early. I left my house, I think I was 18, and I never went back. I got an apartment a couple of towns over, and I had a decent place with 2 or 3 friends, and it was a party house. I was doing the same thing. It was a big party house. We drank, we had a good time. My friends didn't come from the same background, at least not as bad, dysfunctionally and alcoholically as I did. My father eventually stopped drinking. My sister and I kind of worked on this a little bit and said, you're gonna be living in the woods. My mother eventually did throw him out. He threw him out, and he lived out behind the school in his truck, one of his trucks, a dump truck, and stayed there for a while. It was getting cold, and my sister would go down and bring him food, and he'd still be drinking, and she told him, "You're a chronic alcoholic." And he was floored. We don't have the courage to look at them and say that. I don't know where my sister got that from, but she said, you're destitute, you're not living at home, you're not wanted at home by anybody because of your alcoholism. You either have to do something or this is where you're going to live. He eventually got back in the house and went to AA. And it wasn't very long, he started to change little by little, and he got sober. Me, on the other hand, I was now out in my apartment with my friends doing exactly what he did his whole life that I can remember. And unlocking the courage to talk to him like a man to another man instead of being afraid of him was still a little bit difficult for me. I mean, we're damaged goods when we have alcoholism in the house and you're the child. You don't know what to make of them. So he did make it to AA, and 2 or 3 times he wasn't sure, and he did the same thing most of us do. We go back out and test it again, and maybe we can control it, and at that point we're lost, but we don't know it. But he got sober. And like I said, my father was a good man. He was just an alcoholic. He was not an evil person. He didn't take a swing at me or say really bad things to my sister or my mother. He was just an angry drunk. And I think he had low self-esteem. He wasn't a hugely successful man in business. I learned from him the masonry business, and I became a mason contractor and did pretty good for myself. I also bought a moving and storage company from a great uncle of mine that was married to my grandmother for quite a few years. And I did pretty good. I did pretty good for myself. Bought real estate. I had some real estate. But unlocking the courage is difficult to do. And you're not going to get trained in this by yourself. You're not going to be able to read books and get this done. You have to get some sort of therapy. But these are the complications with alcoholism. This is just awful. But if you can get everything on the right track, including yourself, communication's broken. When everyone's sober and everything's nice and quiet, you don't want to talk at dinner. You don't want to do any of that. You're just glad that no one's yelling or screaming or drunk out of their mind or saying horrible things to each other. It's growing up in it is just absolutely awful. And then what happens? You turn into a teenager or a young man or a young woman, and what do? You automatically go and see if you can find a nice alcoholic person to help. It's like you're doomed because it's the only thing you know. You haven't been trained, you haven't been talked to. When I was a kid, it was a lot different. There wasn't many therapists that knew a lot about this. We had Alcoholics Anonymous, but outside of that, we didn't have any medications. We didn't have any therapists. It wasn't widely scrutinized like it is now. Even 15, 20 years ago, it was, beginning to become more and more popular, accepted that you need help. When I was a kid growing up, it was kind of like a secret. And then I think what happens, we start dating. We start dating people that are like our parents. And it goes horribly awry. And they may be alcoholic, they may not be. They may be some sort of a dysfunctional family, but I'm alcoholic, and that turns out to be a mess. And if you get married to it, you're just continuing the whole process. This is what it does to families: drug addiction, alcoholics. If you're addicted to anything, this is what it does. I'm still an addict. I haven't had a drink or a drug in 36 years.